Today, I'll be showing you a little bit about one of our brand new features, MPskins Web-Wayfinder. And today I'll be describing a little bit what the feature is, how it works, how it can be set up, what it can be used for, and of course, at the end, I'll be unmuting everybody, or everyone can unmute themselves, and I'll be there to answer any questions you guys might have. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So this is what a standard Matterport tour would look like. Now, let's have a look at what the Wayfinder actually looks like once it's in action. So here, I'm going to be showing you guys first off what it actually looks like. So here we have the wayfinding path. Now, what is the Wayfinder? The Wayfinder is an automatic navigation aid that indicates the path in a dynamic fashion in the tour. So as you can see here, as you move alongside the path and as you move away from it, it keeps adjusting to match your location. So I can actually go back, move around the space, and it will always dynamically adjust to the site that I'm looking to go to. As you can see, we've got these little red bubbles that indicate where the path is going. And the path is actually visible not only in the walkable area, but it's also visible in the dollhouse mode and in the floor plan. So here, if we have a look, we can see the path is also visible here in the floor plan view, and it's also visible in the dollhouse. So that's a really handy tool to have on hand. If we go back to the walkable area, we can see that we have a couple options here at the bottom. So you can see these three buttons here. Obviously, the last one is to fully just close the Wayfinder if we don't have any need for it. The play button that we see at the very start here to the left is the automatic playthrough. So once we hit this button, we're going to be following automatically alongside the indicated path. A little bit like a guided tour that most of you are familiar with, I'm sure, from Matterport or from MPskins highlight reels. And as you can see, the automatic walkthrough just kind of leads the user alongside the path until they reach the end destination. We also always see the actual meterage indicated here at the bottom, so we can always see how far it actually is to get to a specific location. And if we don't want to utilize the Wayfinder for this specific case, even though it is set up, we can use the middle button here to just straight up jump to the location that we've selected. This is just to show you the general way that the Wayfinder is used in the front end. And once again, I've seen the question on one of the posts that I've made recently regarding the Wayfinder, where someone was asking, "Oh, what is this feature used for? Like, what's the point of having something like this?" And I'm going to show you in a little bit of a larger space here. Here we have a scan of a large hotel. And as you can imagine, sometimes, especially in specific sectors, this could be facility management, this could be hospitality. It can be really useful for guests, for future guests, to be able to actually see how to get to a specific area ahead of time, ahead of actually arriving on site. Now, this is interesting because, again, especially in larger buildings and larger complexes, it can be nice to know ahead of time how to really get from point A to point B. That's one reason. Then another big reason is accessibility. So say you have someone visiting a certain location that might not be able to use stairs or might not be able to walk like we can, maybe someone in a wheelchair. They can be checking everything ahead of time, seeing how to navigate around a specific space, how to get there in the fastest way, of course. And another big benefit is the actual distance that's being indicated here at the bottom. Just a heads up, of course, this distance that we see here indicated can be set to both or to either metric or imperial. So you can have the distance be shown in feet and in meters. You don't need to, you have both options available to you. If we look at one of our larger scans that we've done with our own scanning operation, we've got the Legoland Germany here. And this is a quite large model. So this is kind of where the distance indicator comes in quite valuable to be able to see how far it actually is to get to a specific site. And then once again, we have the same functionality available also in the dollhouse. So here you can see It's a really, really large scan. In this case, with a dollhouse this large, the dots do kind of get faded out a little bit, but it can be really handy to see how to exactly get to a specific location, especially in a space that's as large as this. And since the Wayfinder always shows the shortest path to the desired location, the shortest path that's possible, yeah, it's just very useful to be able to see how best to get to a specific location on site. So those are, I would say, the main benefits of having such a feature available. Let me pause this for just a moment. Now, I'm sure you're wondering how exactly it is set up and what the options are in terms of, having to use it or how exactly you can configure it. So let's now have a small look into the back end to see how it's actually set up. Now, this is what the MPskin backend looks like for those that aren't yet familiar with it. We've got our usual different tabs here, and in the case of the Wayfinder, we actually activate it in the menu tab. Now, most overlays have this kind of same core principle where the menu pretty much serves as the heart of the menu, where all the different types of information and content are handy just in one spot. And here we have two options for activating the Wayfinder per menu block. So in this case, our menu builder consists of several blocks that can be configured with different types of content. It could be media, it could be text, it could be deep links like we have here, but it could also be tags. And the Wayfinder can be used with either deep links or tags. So in this example, we've got a whole bunch of deep links here in the menu, and we can activate it per menu block. So in this case, for example, I've activated it for the first block, not for the second one, but that's of course entirely up to you. You can also find the same option when you hit edit on the menu block and navigate to the advanced settings over here. This is where you see the Wayfinder option up top here as well. This is actually where we've had it originally, but then we realized that a lot of users had trouble finding where to actually activate it. So this is why we added the toggle buttons here as well. So this is pretty much all you have to do in order to use it. There is no setup required. You do not need to manually define which kind of path you want the Wayfinder to take. It's all done automatically. And the logic we have for the Wayfinder is kind of like a reverse logic in terms of the wayfinding itself is automatic. And then we have the wayfinding editor, which we can find up here in this tab, that allows us to actually modify how exactly the wayfinder is supposed to go. So this is where I'm going to show you how to really optimize the path. The main issues when it comes to the automatic wayfinding here is that there's always going to be certain areas inside of a scan that have certain issues. There might be a little fragment of mesh that's in the way. There might be an area that just has a hole in the mesh where the wayfinder might lead through a certain path that it's not supposed to be leading through. So this is what we have the AR editor for. And you can actually activate it straight away. Oh, this leads me down another road. Let's go this way. You can actually test it straight in the AR editor and then make adjustments. So this is where I'm going to show you some of the adjustments that you can make. Here, I've placed a blocker. So what does the blocker do? The blocker tells the wayfinder to, or the path generator to not pass through a certain area. So here in this case, before I had placed this blocker here in this area, the wayfinder was actually kind of cutting through the edge right here, going to the next point, perhaps because the mesh wasn't properly recognized where this little stone table is. So this is why I've placed a blocker in this particular location. And let me see if I can show you some of the other areas. I'm going to show you what it actually works like to place it and what a problem area like that might look like. So in this case, if I go to breakfast buffet, I can see that the wayfinder here in this particular area, it kind of cuts through where the table is, right? Those are small things. Of course, they don't need to be fixed. If you or your client is perfectly fine with the way that it works right here, then you can leave it. But if you want to optimize the path and make sure that it doesn't cut through or cut corners in that sense, you can use the blocker. So all we need to do is press Add New here at the bottom, select Blocker, give it a title, like just bread counter here. And then much like a virtual staging object, we can just position it. And now if I place it here, I can adjust it just with the regular tools that we have in virtual staging as well. So in this case, I might want to place it somewhere here, make sure that it covers the counter so that the wave doesn't cut through. And now we can see that it actually curves around this corner that it was cutting previously. We can, of course, always adjust this, make sure that the blocker is positioned in just the right way. And this is the way that we use those blockers for. So here, for example, I've had another area. Let me see if I can get the path to go through here. Trying to see if it gives me the option somewhere. Here. This is where I've placed a blocker here as well, because previously it was slightly cutting through this area as well. This again can always happen depending on how well the scan has been done. There's always going to be slight inconsistencies with the mesh. So for any such case, you can use a blocker to make sure that it doesn't cut through any area that you don't want the Wayfinder to cut through. So this is really what you would use to optimize the path. In terms of the workflow, what I would recommend is for users to utilize the wayfinding editor like I am right here and simply navigate around with it a little bit, create a couple paths, see if it works in the way that you want it to, see if it cuts any corners, and then place blockers if needed, if necessary, in any locations that the wayfinder might have struggles, not cutting any ways through the mesh. This is one of the ways that you can optimize the Wayfinder. And then we've got another option, which is the teleport. I'm not sure, some of you might be familiar already with MPskins AR product, where we have quite similar functionalities in terms of the AR editor, where we also have the wayfinding. And the teleport here works pretty much the same as it does in AR. Teleports are meant to create a path or a connection between two locations where there was previously none. Essentially telling the Wayfinder, listen, this is the shortest path to get from A to B. And the most common use case for teleports would be elevators. So here, since we don't have a mesh inside the elevator path, because that's not possible with Matterport, we're able to actually create a way for the Wayfinder to use those teleports. So what we've done here is, as you can see, you've got these different objects here at the side. And in this space, you can see that we've placed one of those teleport objects at the front of each of the elevator doors. And the way that you connect them is when you set them, you select a target object. So you can always connect the two to each other. And the way that you would do it for example, several floors with an elevator in such an object is that you essentially create a chain where you go from 0 to 1, from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, and so on. So you don't need to create multiple teleports to go, from each floor to each floor, but just kind of create a chain where all of them link nicely together. I think we can see it super well in this scan. Let me see if I can make it a bit more visible. In the dollhouse, it's usually the best way to check. You can kind of see it here. This is where the elevator goes, and you can see that we've got these different teleport objects kind of placed wherever the elevator goes. So this is kind of where you can see this is how we create a path where now if I were to navigate from the ground floor to a specific room that's in an upper floor, instead of going over the stairs and making the path a lot longer, the Wayfinder would go through the elevator. So this is what the teleports are for. In this case, we even have two for two elevator doors. But this is the general way that it can be used and set up for. But there's also another way to use it. So let me show you something else. Here, once again, this is the scan that we've had a look at previously. Now, when we go back inside the wayfinding editor, we can click on the object to just straight jump to it. So here we have a scan where we had an issue of going through this specific door. It just wouldn't go through this door because there was a little fragment of mesh inside this door, and it's also quite the narrow pathway. And since the Wayfinder always kind of acts like, we call it the wayfinding agent, and there's certain requirements for how tall a passageway has to be, how wide it has to be in order for the agent to recognize it as a navigable path. And depending on how the scan has been done, it's always possible that there are some fragments that kind of cut in there. I'm sure some of you have seen issues like this before, where sometimes you can't, even in just the standard Matterport space, you can't click through a certain door because there's something in the way. And this is also something you can solve with teleports by placing one on both sides of the problem area, essentially. The Wayfinder will circumvent the mesh fragment and jump straight from one spot to the other. And here, once again, we only need to link the object once. So in this case, I've placed teleport number 1. I didn't put any target object for it. And then I placed teleport number 2. And then I told them, okay, your target object is teleport number 1. That's all you need to do. And as easy as that, you can create a sort of bridge between 2 points that previously were not navigable. And that's essentially it when it comes to the wayfinding editor. Those two types of objects really allow you to fully optimize the wayfinder to really match or to fully function in the way that you want it to. Just by being able to place all of those different objects. As you can see here in this larger hotel example, we've got a whole bunch of different ones. Another good advice that I can give is to place these types of objects wherever balconies are. If you have several floors, if it's a scan that has been done with Pro 3 or just any kind of scan that has outside area, it is possible for the Wayfinder to jump, for example, from an area that's here somewhere down here, depending again on how exactly the scan has been done. So placing the blockers like so, like you can see here in this area, is also a great way to ensure that the Wayfinder never cuts through the air and always goes straight on the ground where it's supposed to be going. I'm sure someone might wonder now why we didn't just configure it in a way that never kind of jumps levels. And that's because we do have a whole bunch of scans that contain elevations and stairs and similar, where we do need the climb up and down. So again, this is the best way to go about balconies and locations that have an area like this where there's a probability of the Wayfinder jumping through. And again, the best way to really test these things is to just access the wayfinding editor and just test it out. Kind of have a look at where the path goes, if there is any specific area that's causing issues. And again, by gaining experience with using the feature, you will get more and more experience with what types of areas tend to pose problems. And let's jump over here again. Now I'm going to show you another neat feature, because apart from being able to activate the Wayfinder per whole menu block, you also have the option of activating it for just specific deep links. When you click back on the Wayfinding tab up here, you can see that I've added this information here just today, that the wayfinding can also be activated by adding a specific URL parameter. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the URL parameters. They're common in Matterport as well. So if we add this little parameter on top of a deep link, we're actually able to start the Wayfinder even if you use the deep link as a click action. So this could be as a hyperlink in a text tag, for example. It could be as a click action on a virtual staging object. It could be really anywhere that you can place an external link click action and add a deep link to it. So I'm going to show you what this would look like in practice. Let me just restart so I get to the starting point a little faster. In this example I'll be showing you in just a moment, I've placed a virtual staging icon, this little walking man that we see here in the front. And as a click action, I've placed an external link on it, which is a deep link to another location. We see the little action glow here. And then when I click on the object, the Wayfinder starts as well. So this is another way to make use of the Wayfinder. It does not need to be included necessarily in the menu, even though that is probably the most common use. It can also be used directly as a click action on a specific object. And again, it could be, if it's virtual staging, it could be an icon, it could be an image, it could be a 3D avatar, it could be whatever you would like it to. And just for those that are not too familiar yet with MPskin, this is what the virtual staging tab would look like in this example. And here I've got the icon that I'm using in this particular example. And then here in the action tab, when I hit edit, This is where I see the external link option, same tab, so we stay in the same tour. And then here you can see that I've got a deep link. So up until this point of the link, this is just the standard deep link that you can pull with the U key by going inside the tour. And I've added the wayfinding parameter on top of the deep link. And that's pretty much it. That's all you need to do in order to add wayfinding on top of a deep link, essentially. So those are the different options that you have in terms of actually utilizing the Wayfinder and activating it inside the tour. Once again, it can, for the most part, most users probably will choose to activate it for a whole menu block. And again, if there's no need for you to use a feature like this, you can also, of course, disable it, and there's no need to use it if you feel like it would be a hassle for the users, but it's great to have. You could also technically create two different menu blocks where you might have one that doesn't have the wayfinding and one that does. So since you can select for each menu block to either be collapsed or not, you could have it be nice and neat where you have the menu block with the wayfinding included collapsed, for example, kind of like we see here in this example. So here we have a couple collapsed menu blocks as well. So those are all options that are there for you in terms of customizing how exactly you want to make use of the Wayfinder. Yeah, I think it's a pretty straightforward feature in itself, since there's no need to set up the path, there's no need to configure any specific wayfinding. It's more of the negative or reverse logic where the standard default wayfinding is always there, and then if you want to optimize it because you found areas kind of like here, for example, where it cuts through the mesh just a little bit as well, then you can go ahead and place a blocker in such an area to make sure that it doesn't cut through any areas that you don't want it to cut through. And then once again, the elevators are there for you to use for elevators, the teleports, yes. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it in terms of explaining. It's a pretty straightforward feature. So I'm going to go ahead and enable you guys to be able to unmute yourself if someone has a question. Let me.
All right, I have a question. Does it require the matter pack? And is it the same billing model?
No. The wayfinding is included for free for business and pro users, and it does not require the matter pack. So this is
Perfect.
entirely different from AR, which is also why it took us a little bit of time to develop this as a feature, because when it comes to web wayfinding, the only path that you can take through a model is on top of the sweep points, right? You can't, unlike AR, where you can move around anywhere on location in person. In the web, you can always only navigate on top of the sweep point. So this is why you also see the Wayfinder always navigates straight onto a sweep point. So here you can see it makes a corner right where this sweep point is, because this is kind of the base of the navigation. And that's already contained in just the standard default Matterport tour. Yeah, there's no need for the matter pack, no nothing like that. You can use it in any of the skins you already have, no need for extra setup. Again, the only kind of adjustments you would need to make is to double check if any of the paths are having any issues, and then possibly go ahead with the blockers and correct wherever the path needs some correction.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Hear me?
Hi, Oliver.
Hi. I think it's a very nice tool, and thank you for the presentation. I'm still thinking about the business case where I can use it. And because normally I'm not walking through a hotel and open my Matterport tour
Yeah.
to see a way. I'm thinking I'm just try to make a kind of brainstorming. Maybe it is a good thing for a presentation of your in-house navigation system, because there you normally have the problem. You have not the possibility to show it to a client if you don't are at the place where the in-house navigation works.
Yeah, that could be a use case for sure. But I assume by indoor navigation you mean the AR
The AR,
Yeah.
yes, because it is difficult to explain to people the
Yeah,
in-house navigation, because you have to be at the place
yeah.
where.
It's an option, I would say. But again, just keep in mind that the actual, like the way that the path is generated is different in AR compared to the web. It should be approximately the same, but in AR, the navigation is based on the whole mesh. So every nook and
Yes,
cranny that you've got, like every single path, whereas in the web, it can only navigate on top of scan points. So it's a slight difference. It probably, in practice, there's probably only a few use cases, a few spaces where it would actually differ in terms of the path. Especially, if you know what you're doing with the scans and the scan is well done, then it should not be a big difference, but just something to keep in mind. But I do think for the end client, it's probably a good way to just have the coin drop moment of understanding, oh, this is what the feature is, this is what it's supposed to be.
exact. Yeah,
That might be a good strategy, yes.
yeah.
Just a quick question, Mia. If you change your mind on the tour and you want to go somewhere else, is this something that will be an easy experience, or do you have to go back to a starting point like I experienced once in the beta, or can you just change your mind and then it will calculate a new route?
It should, yeah. So it's dynamic, so it should. You can always just cancel, like both in AR and with the Web-Wayfinder, you can always cancel a
Mhm.
path if you say, well, I don't want to go there anymore. But the way that it's supposed to be working is that it's dynamic. So it's always moving with you,
Mhm.
depending on where you go. It should always be following you and showing you the next closest path to go through. So here, for example, I see another area here where I would need to place a blocker.
I'm here.
Yeah.
A question for
Hello.
you. Hello. I tried this tools yesterday on one of my own tours,
Yes.
and when I tried it on the menu system, then
Mhm.
the menu system sort of stopped working. Understood this way. Normally, when I click on it, I go fly to another point. But
Yes.
now, when I activate the Wayfinder, it will show me the way.
Yes.
Is there some way where I can have both
Yes.
tools?
Well, you see these three buttons here at the bottom, right? So whenever
Yeah.
I start the wayfinding, I've got these three options. Obviously, I can either just, manually kind of follow along the path. Here I've got the automatic walkthrough. So that's a little bit like a guided tour, like a highlight reel. And then here, this is the middle button. This is the one that brings me back straight to the location. So this is kind of what I can use if I've got the wayfinder active for the menu block, like here, for example. But maybe sometimes, it's nice to see the path, but then I'm like, well, I don't want to click, 30 times to get to the location. So this is where you can just press this button here at the bottom to just go straight to the location. In this example, for example, you could create this twice, this block, have the first one be without the wayfinder, and then, for example, have the second block, kind of like we have here with the rooms, set that to be collapsed so it's not permanently open, it's not, wasting so much space. And then, for example, label that second block automatic wayfinding or whatever you would like it to be, and then have the wayfinder be active for just that block. That might be an option. So here, when we go back to the menu tab here, we see the blocks. I could have it be activated for just the lower block, for example, and then essentially have the same deep links in there, but then select for the second block to be collapsed, or the other way around, depending on what priority you want to give the wayfinder. That's kind of those are the options that we have available. And again, once you select it and you select to go to a specific room, you always have the option, even with the wayfinder active, to just jump straight to the location and get there straight away.
Yeah, I understand. I just saw your menu system with the four language. Is there a possibility where we could set it up just to function on English and German and not in Danish and Spanish?
I don't think so. I think at the moment it's set up to affect all languages at once. I mean, I can pass that on as an idea since this is something, we've just come out with. We're happy to, hear suggestions and feedback. Alternatively, what you can do, which is a little bit more work, but as I mentioned previously, you can also have the Wayfinder active by just using the URL parameter. So what you could do is just set up the menu by default, how you have it without the Wayfinder active, and then add the URL parameter to just the one language, for example. That would work. You would just need to add it to all of the different deep links or the tag links then.
But can I do that in the pretty URL?
Yes,
Well,
yes.
okay, then no problem.
Yeah, actually, just because I think someone else had that issue just this week, I recommend in general when you create deep links for the menu, don't use deep links with the pretty URL on it because sometimes people change the pretty URL, they might forget, and then the deep links they don't work anymore. you are not going to leave the skin. If I have, I think you can even actually see it here. Can you see the very left bottom here where it gives me the preview of what the actual link is in there? So you can see it contains a permanent URL. It doesn't have the pretty URL on there. But even if I go to the pretty URL tour, it's not going. Oh, yeah, that's what I've got open here. So you can see here at the very bottom left, you can see that the deep link behind it doesn't have the pretty URL on it, but it doesn't matter. You will still stay inside the tour, and it's just a way to ensure that you're not going to be thrown out by using the pretty URL in the deep links, or you're more flexible in terms of changing the pretty URL.
I have a quick question. You recall that in the AR player, it would be best if you were on site to actually try it out, because you
Yes.
have to be physically in the place. And you
Yes.
gave me very good tips the other day, and thank you for that, Mia, about using a big screen and then simulate that you were in that building for test
Yes.
purposes. Does that work as well here?
Well, there is no AR for the Web-Wayfinder, so you can test everything directly in the
You can
browser.
test everything. All right.
Yeah, you don't need to go on site or anything like that. You can, again, what I would recommend is to test it even straight in the Wayfinder editor, because then you can actually see, you can make live edits, you can place
Just
a
by clicking.
blocker, for example, and you see the path changing as you place it. So
Yes.
that's really handy to kind of, find out what the best, how to best get the path. I'm just going to have a look inside the chat real quick. Someone was asking if it's possible to change the color of the red dots. I anticipated that this was going to be a question. So as of right now, we don't have that as an option yet. I do personally feel like it would be nice to do it because, again, like I had a feeling people were going to ask that. At the moment, we don't have that as an option, but perhaps I could try and convince the team to implement this, because I do feel like there's always going to be people that might want to match it, to the corporate identity of the client and stuff like that. So it's definitely something I'll be discussing with the team, but as of right now, we don't have that available.
It's even more relevant when you talk about a hospital where, we have these blue, red, and yellow lines that you have to follow.
Oh, yeah.
This is for people much more logical, that they say, okay, follow the yellow line. And then you get to the right place. They don't have a sophisticated menu system to select it first. They have the more logical, follow the blue line.
Let me just see. Someone was also asking if we can adjust the speed of the guided tour in the Wayfinder. Not as of right now, but that's one of the other things that I'm going to try and argue to the team to be able to input. Oftentimes the argument is, we don't want to make it too complicated, not, add too many different settings and stuff like that. But I do. Let me just have a
question
quick.
about.
Yes.
Hi, sorry. Question about emergency exit paths.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have a use case, but how to educate workers and customers about the closest emergency exit to stairways versus elevators.
I'm trying to think, because the way that I mean, the wayfinding path would always lead you to the nearest emergency exit, but I don't think we have an option where, because you would need to be able to link like several locations, right? For the wayfinder to say which one is the fastest to get to. What you can do is link all the emergency exits to the menu at the side, and then you would see the distance here listed at the bottom. So you would be able to see, okay, which one is the closest to the location that I'm in. I mean, I guess this is not a functionality that someone would use in case of an emergency, like when they're in the emergency, because that's not the best time to, get out your phone. But it would
Correct.
work in order to check, for example, say I'm located here in this specific location, and perhaps I have a menu block here at the side that has that lists all the different emergency exits with a deep link or with a tag. I could click through them, and as you can see here, it never sends me straight there. It just kind of indicates the different distances if I just kind of click through the menu here. So that would be a way to see which one is the closest. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Let me have a look if someone else was asking something in the chat. I think someone was asking if it's possible to work, if it works on site with a mobile phone. Again, that would be AR. So this is different from AR. AR is where you go on location with your phone and you see the actual real life location around you through the phone camera, and then you have the content on top. This is the Web-Wayfinder. It only works straight in the Matterport tour on your browser. It also works on mobile, of course, but it's not AR. So it's not the, you don't see the actual location on site on your phone, but you always will see the Matterport scan that you've done. So the working on site, that would be AR. Yeah. But yeah, that's essentially all that I wanted to show you guys today. This is what we've launched this week. I do think it's a pretty cool, nifty tool, especially because it doesn't have any upcharge, which again is one of the main differences when compared to AR, which comes at quite a steep cost. So yeah, it's essentially a nice little add-on to be able to offer to the clients. And yeah, I think it's a really nice addition to have available on top of the already existing functionalities in MPskin. And yeah, I'm happy to hear feedback once everyone has gotten around to actually trying it. Yeah. Does anyone else have a question? I think we're through then for today. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating today. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Once again, for any questions, feel free to send me an email and reach out. I'm happy to answer there. And good luck testing everything and exploring the Wayfinder.